Hey Claw fans, we've got our hands on some Cyberpunk 2077 footage from the MSI Claw 155H or Core Ultra 7 at 40 watts TDP, and we've had the person run some benchmarks for us. Unfortunately, we don't have direct access to this, but we have a user in Singapore who's really helping us out with this information. So unfortunately, we are seeing performance not quite where we want it right now. So at 40 watts TDP, at 1080p on low graphics preset, we're looking at just over 36 frames per second. You are seeing recorded footage on the device for these benchmarks as well, but these benchmarks were done without recording. Now, just for a kind of matchup, on the ROG Ally currently it's using the same Intel XeSS balance on low settings at 1080p, we're looking at around 48 frames per second. And this isn't hugely different to the ROG Ally at 1080p using the FSR2 auto mode, which is around 49 frames per second. But we do see quite a difference, which is why we run the Ally generally at 900p, that if we run the same AMD FSR2 at 900p, we're almost at 60 frames per second. But that base FPS is well over the 40 mark, so it makes it much more stable. So even with 10 watts TDP less, we are still seeing gains on the Ally at the moment. And just for reference, just how optimized it is for the Steam Deck right now, that the Steam Deck OLED at 800p is running at 47 frames per second, but the minimum does go down to 20 with some big dips here and there. So definitely is still some optimization of the MSI Claw drivers. And for reference, if we run it at the 40 watts at 720p, we get around 52 frames per second with that Intel XeSS 1.2. So much closer to the 900p version on the ROG Ally, but obviously that's running at 720, not 900p. So it's going to be very interesting to see just how good this looks. What I can see, even though we've got some stutter introduced because of the recording on device and some artifacts, is if you compare this to the ROG Ally and a benchmark, especially with FSR2 or the XeSS, it is looking much cleaner on the MSI Claw, but until we can actually get our hands on the device at the end of March, hopefully sooner if we can get hold of a review unit, then we won't be able to clarify that. What we are being told though is that it is extremely nice to use. The triggers and the joysticks are far superior than the ROG Ally or even the Legion Go, with the Hall effect triggers and also obviously the Hall effect joysticks. The speakers, we've been told, is also better than the ROG Ally, and I think the ROG Ally has one of the best speakers of all the handhelds out there at the moment, so that's really exciting to hear. And they are updating the software and drivers almost daily on the device at the moment. And Intel did release new ARC drivers, which we did make sure were in place before this benchmarks, but it didn't really make a huge difference on this. And the Intel Core E-Core preference on the Cyberpunk 2077 update actually makes it worse on the MSI Claw at the moment, so this was on that auto mode as well. We'll continue looking at bits and pieces as the drivers come out, and obviously once we get our hands on the full device, we'll have some recorded footage through our capture card like we do with the other devices. But for now, we are seeing around a 10 to 15 FPS drop on the Claw versus things like the ROG Ally or Legion Go. Hopefully this is just a driver issue. It is early days, but we are going to have a look at the software, which is where I think it has some big gains. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.